It started with a YouTube video. I had fallen into the long abyss of a stream of algorithmic displays involving goats. And I was particularly enamored with the video where Taylor Swift sings her song, and I don't even remember what song, but in the middle of it, it cuts away from Taylor Swift, and in the loud part, a goat screams. And then I found an opera song where they cut away and the goat screams. And I just thought this was the best thing ever. And then I began to wonder, could my wife train a goat to scream on command? So that way we could have our goat just scream. And we could make videos without having to edit them because the animal would be trained to do it. Usually, food motivation. My wife can train anything. She trains horses, she trains dogs, she trains cats, she trains me. She can train anything. But the mistake happens next. Because I went up to my wife and I said, could you train a goat to scream on command so we could replicate the Taylor Swift video? You don't ask my wife these sorts of questions. Because she accepts the challenge. She will not ever deny the challenge. And within just a couple days, we were on our way up to Deltona, Florida, in the middle of nowhere, to pick up a goat. The goat was free. He was a baby. He was very small and very cute. He had beautiful blue eyes, and he had lovely brown fur, and he was lap size. You could we put him in the car with us, and we held him close as we drove him home. He was very upset about leaving his family that he knew. Of course, he left his mother. He was in this weird vehicle with weird people, and he screamed the whole ride home, those wonderful baby goat screams, and we were just delighted. And the best part was he was free. We didn't pay a single penny for this goat, with the stipulation that we would not eat the goat. I now understand why they made that request. Our journey with Nigel was a long, long road. And many times, I considered learning to like to eat goat. I don't even know where to begin. Nigel was too smart for his own good. Could he be trained? Yes. Did he want to be trained? No, because no man could contain this goat. Let me give you a couple examples. Nigel was an escape artist. He could get out of any enclosure if he so desired. And so every day, he found a new way out of the fence. And eventually he got too big to fit through the fence squares, so he would get stuck in the fence. And every day when we came home, it was one of our responsibilities to adjust Nigel's head to get his horns through the fence, so that way he wouldn't get stuck there and die. Okay, first of all, we didn't know that there was a cream you can put on a baby goat's head so they don't grow horns. And so we had a goat with full-sized horns. That's a mistake. Eventually, Nigel could jump fences or push them down. And when he pushed down a fence and my wife started to repair a fence, she would be hammering in the tacks that hold the fence into the fence post, and he would be grabbing them with his lips and pulling them out of the fence. So anytime she repaired the fence, it would take twice as long as normal because she would have to go back and redo whatever it was that Nigel had undone. Nigel was a people person. In his first weeks, we had spent so much time with him, he just assumed that he was supposed to be with us. So if we put him in the pasture where the goats were supposed to be, he would find a way out. We found Nigel in our pool. We found Nigel on our back patio that was fenced off. We found Nigel in our garage. We found Nigel on top of my car. We have found Nigel in the house. We have found Nigel everywhere. And eventually, Nigel became very inquisitive about the neighborhood that we lived in. And so one day, Nigel jumped the back fence because he wanted to meet some chickens and geese in the yard behind us. He decided to do this on the only day I have ever hosted a party in my life. Because I'm not a very social person. When I go home, I completely shut off. It is like I run the computer while I'm at work, and then we power down the moment we get home. So even though my students would probably find it hard to believe that I'm not extroverted, that I'm not a very talkative person because of the way I act when I teach, when I get home, I am the polar opposite. I am dead silent. Actually, in the summer, I hardly speak at all. And so by the time I go back to school, my throat hurts for the first couple weeks. So anyway, I'm throwing this party and I'm a complete introvert and it's a big event for me. And I spend all day cleaning the house. My wife is helping to get everything ready. And I'm super nervous because I'm inviting all of my coworkers into my home. And I don't really feel comfortable about any of this. Because I don't like social situations. I'm so terrified. And so just about half an hour before I'm supposed to have this party, Nigel's gone. Because he went to go visit the ducks and the chickens in the backyard of the neighbor behind us. Now the problem is that our fence didn't have a gate, and I'm not a goat, so I can't climb or jump. And so I had to walk around this neighborhood. And it's not a small neighborhood because everybody here has acres of land. So to get to Nigel, who is in the yard directly behind my house, we literally had to walk a mile. So I walk all the way around, I take a lead rope. A lead rope is just a fancy word for a leash that is used for livestock, horses, cows, goats. Okay, so I take the lead rope over, I go get Nigel, and he kind of fights me all the way, and I drag him back. And by the time I get to my party, I'm late to my own party. And at some point, I'm pushing the goat through my yard. And my coworkers, still to this day, have evidence of me pushing this goat through the yard. And it just looks awful. Like I'm just miserable pushing this goat. So that was the first big Nigel escape. Nigel going and me being late to the only party I have ever hosted in my life. But it is not the only time Nigel escaped. No, Nigel escaped all the time. But the most epic escape happened at the same property. My wife had a concert that I was supposed to attend to watch her play the flute. My son was going to the concert as well, and we discovered that Nigel was out. Now, it was easy to discover that Nigel was out because he would tell everybody about it. He would start screaming through the neighborhood, and you could tell by the distance of the screams just how far away Nigel was. And this particular scream was the farthest away we'd ever heard. Not only did he go to the property directly behind us with the goats with the chickens and the geese that he became friends with, he decided to wander across the street from them. So my wife drove me over as she was racing to get to her concert. I said, I'll stay behind. I'll take care of Nigel this time. She drove me the mile or more to get to Nigel. And I put the lead rope around Nigel's neck, and I gave a gentle tug, and, come on, Nigel, let's go, let's get home, Nigel. Nigel won't budge. He puts on the brakes. Now, by this time, he's not a little lap goat. He's not that cute, adorable, hornless animal that we drove home. He is a 200-pound goat with a full set of horns, and he does not want to move. So he just puts the brakes on. And so I'm tugging a little bit harder. Come on, Nigel. Let's go, Nigel. Let's go. We got to go home, Nigel. He's not budging. So at this point, I'm super frustrated, and I'm pulling against Nigel with all of my might. Nigel's not moving. Nigel gets so frustrated with me trying to move him that he literally pretends he's a fainting goat and falls over onto his side and plays dead. Now, the trouble with this is Nigel is not a fainting goat. We had a fainting goat once. Fainting goats are really interesting because when they get startled or when they get scared, they literally pass out and they fall over. But Nigel was not that. He was a Nigerian or a Nubian or something like that. And he just fell over and looked at me. And so I'm giving him a tug and trying to get him back up. I'm not pulling hard. I'm not being abusive. I'm just trying to get Nigel to get up and move and do something. He's literally laying like a 200-pound bag of flesh on the ground. And so I give a real strong tug, and it starts dragging Nigel across the ground. And he is not moving. He is not screaming. He's not making a sound. And all of a sudden I realize that the woman across the street is standing in the yard watching me, horrified. And she's like, "Is your goat okay? Do you need any help? I think he might be dead." The goat was not dead, he was just being a jerk. Nigel had thoroughly convinced the other woman that he was dead. He was not. He was very much alive. So she goes in the house, mortified that I'm dragging this dead goat across the yard, and I am not. Anyway, so eventually I get Nigel up, and I'm real annoyed at this point. Like, all the swear words are coming out of my mouth because Nigel. Anytime you interacted with Nigel, swear words would happen. So I did a little jog, and I'm like, well, maybe if I jog, Nigel will get excited and he'll jog with me. Yes, he did. He was willing to go for a jog. Here's the problem, guys. If you've never seen me, I'm not what you would call in shape. I'm working on my winter bod real hard. Okay, if you imagine a man who eats too many Oreos, that's your guy. Okay, and so Nigel wants to go for a run, and the only way I can get him home a mile away is if I run with a 200-pound goat that I just spent about 20 minutes trying to drag through the ground. I'm already exhausted. I haven't run in 15 years. I ran a mile that day, had to run with Nigel all the way home. When I got home, it wasn't Nigel who appeared to be dead. It was me, passed out on my floor, huffing and puffing and swearing up a storm. The moral of this story is, don't get a goat. It's a trap. Not one time did Nigel ever behave himself. I have so many stories about Nigel. I could go on literally for hours of Nigel stories. And anybody who's ever met Nigel knows that nothing good ever came from that goat. Now, after that time that Nigel took me for a run, we had to move shortly thereafter that. We had to leave our house in Christmas, and we had to move to a new property in Sanford. And the fence were not goat-proof. And trust me, that was something that was very important to us. So we had a friend who had a 100-acre farm and a pack of goats. And so Nigel went to live with a new goat family on 100 acres where he could destroy whatever he wanted, and he had other goats to keep him company. And I no longer have a goat. I will never, ever again purposefully have a goat. And you shouldn't either. Don't get a goat. It isn't worth it.